Hi, this is Mike, one of the community testers, the ISR forums, and I've got the Fanatec ClubSport Wheel base with the BMW M3 GT2, I believe it is, race car rim. This is Project CARS, and I'm going to show the Formula Rim in a little bit as well. Got default settings on the wheel, 900 degrees calibrated in the game. I believe my tire force setting is at about 90, might be at 100, I'll have to check. And the force feedback is at 90 as well. Start that right now. This is Watkins Glen, or they call it Connecticut Hill. You can see the rev meters work, as well as the shift light without any plug-in or anything. This is built into the game. I believe Fanatec sent the wheel, or at least the SDK, to the Project CARS team quite a while ago, so they've had this implemented for several builds. Forgive the driving, it's hardball talking. Plus, this wheel's really got a lot of feedback right now. It's strong. If you run into a, well, I'll go ahead and demonstrate. If I crash, you can see the wheel's got a lot of kick to it. So now what I'm going to do, I don't think damage is working in this yet, so let me just drive for a second to make sure the car is driving straight. Yeah, that still feels fine. So now I'm going to show you what I think is one of the coolest features of this, which is being able to hot swap. First of all, one thing, this is a analog D-stick right here, and I actually mapped my seat controls, so I can move the seat up or down, forward or backwards, which I think is kind of neat. That's way too far out. Just messed up my whole field of view, but that's alright. So, live, while the game is going, you can pull off the quick release. As I try not to bump my projector. The side projectors aren't really secured fully yet because I'm always messing with them. Anyway, here's the Formula Rim, and you can see it's still picked up that I'm in neutral. Everything is as before. The shift lights. I'll go ahead and crash here as well, just to let go of the wheel and give you an indication on the speed of this rim. This is a lighter rim. I'm not really noticing a ton of difference on the force feedback. It is a little bit, feels like it's a little bit sharper, but the BMW rim feels so good in your hand and so professional, like out of a real race car, that I don't really notice. It's not to its detriment, the weight. I mean, certainly if they came out with a lighter rim, that would probably be ideal for drifters or maybe even people that do NASCAR, things like that. That would be nice to see a lighter rim because that's probably a little more touchy. I don't do too much on ovals. Anyway, let me crash this again and let go of the wheel and see. That was quite a quick reaction. And that's not even on 100% force feedback. It's on 90. So, initial impressions about the wheel. Let's start with the Formula Rim. I really like the grips. I like the fact that it's Alcantara and this sort of rubberized plastic here where the thumb grips go. Really feels good in your hand. One thing I don't like so much, there is, I'll shoot another video with more close-ups of both rims, but there is a seam here on the grip and although it's not really noticeable while you're driving, I'm just not sure why it couldn't have been manufactured as a full wrap. I can understand if the plastic's seamed and then maybe just wrap the Alcantara over it, but the fact that it's, I guess that would make it more difficult to disassemble is probably the point if it has to be worked on or anything, but that's one little disappointment. I love the fact, and I'll probably have to get a much closer up video to show this, but I love how these shifter paddles are adjustable, although I'd like to feel a little bit more of a tactile click. It's nice that they're quiet actually, but for me the paddle shifters that are ideal are the ones on the CSR Elite. And I'll get into that when I talk about the BMW Rim in a minute too. Not that I don't love this, and this is more authentic to a Formula style car, but they just have a more tactile click to them on the CSR Elite. That's probably about the only thing that I would say, other than obviously the Xbox compatibility, that I miss about the CSR Elite, which I do still have it, but after this test is over, it may be up for sale. So the wheel feels exceptionally smooth when it's not in game. Just like the Elite, when you set either the game or the wheel itself to have stops shorter than 900 degrees, so if you want to set it as a 400 degree wheel, for example, for open wheelers or things like that, when you hit that point, it's very, very strong, the resistance. I know on the older Fanatec wheels, like the GT2 or the Porsche 911, all the Porsche wheels, there was, you could set it for 600 degrees or 500 degrees or, whatever, all the way down to 90, I think, or 200, really ridiculously low. But it would stop in the driver, but then when you're actually playing the game, I noticed you could turn past it. These, with the stronger motors in here, have more resistance and really put up a fight. You're not going to be able to push past those limits. Now, the nice thing about a game like this, that's being developed with a wheel like this in mind, is I don't have to worry about any of that. It sets the limits. If I switch to different cars, it just feels right. So I leave the wheel set to 900 degrees. R Factor 2 is the same way. It'll actually show you in each car menu. There's a click box that you select and basically let the car set the degrees of rotation. So for a Nissan 350 or 370Z, it's going to be 576 or somewhere in that range, and for an open wheeler, it's going to be much lower than that. So that's nice. Love the fact that this actually has the shift lights and that it's integrated with the game. Kind of shows the capabilities. One thing that I'm a little disappointed in is during the development phase of the drivers and the firmware for this wheel, there have been a couple of drivers and a couple of firmwares that have come out since I've had it for the last month. I like to have the pedals connected USB because I'm pretty much just a PC racer at this point. And it used to be that you would feel the ABS vibration on the pedal if you reached a certain limit. I don't know if any games are actually supporting it yet where they're going to talk to the pedals directly and give actual real-time feedback when you're locking up. But that's coming, and I know that Fanatec has said that that's the kind of thing that the pCARS team, R Factor 2, people like that, can add to the sim because they've made their software development kit available. So that's going to be fantastic. But for now, there's always been a way you set on the wheel in the tuning menu, you can set ABS. I like to keep it about 88, and that means when I push my brake pedal down about 88% of the way, I'm going to get vibration through the wheel. Well, it doesn't work anymore if the pedals are connected USB directly to the computer. Why would you want to connect the pedals USB to the computer? Well, because they're higher, it's a 10-bit resolution. You get many more steps of information from the pedals themselves. So that worked in the last driver and firmware on this, and now it doesn't. And I understand that's the same way as the other Fanatec wheels in the line, so I guess I was lucky that it did work, and I'm not sure why they took that away, but that'd be a nice feature if they could add that back in. But for now, what I've been told is if you connect the pedals directly to the wheel with the cable that has, it's like a PS2 connector, then that vibration will work, the ABS. It works in the driver when you do a test, but it doesn't work in practice when the pedals are connected directly. So anyway, I love the button feel. I just unpaused it here. Love the way the buttons, they're very solid. Everything about this wheel is completely solid. This is metal, I believe, or it's a very good plastic. The quick release is good. I did have an issue with the quick release initially. Go ahead. Pause this again. When the wheel first arrived, and again, these are pre-production wheels that we're testing here, the different testers. But when the wheel arrived, the on and off of the quick release, which I'll demonstrate here, was very tight. It was very difficult. When this wheel would go on, trying to pull it off, you'd have to pull with a lot of pressure and it would eventually snap. I almost hit my jaw once. And I understand that they've made a change in the production, and I'm going to put this in my comments on the review and a written review. But the way these screws are torqued down here or in here has been changed, and it makes it much easier to come on and off. The other thing that may have happened is when the wheel shipped initially, this ring can turn. There's actually a slot here, and again, I'll do a video with more close-ups or photos to go with this, but there's a slot here, and there's a screw hole. So if you're at a trade show or some public event, you don't want this to walk away, you can actually screw the rim in. And the slot's supposed to be aligned with the screw hole. I thought that maybe perhaps mine came a little off center. And I was trying to see what that was for, so I started turning this ring on the BMW rim. And there's springs in here that allow this to operate, and I think the springs got jammed up. And that's one of the reasons. So it was probably my issue, but then again, it didn't ship from the factory straight. And I played with it, and I'm probably the one that messed it up. But if it had shipped straight, then I probably wouldn't have ever messed with it. May have still out of curiosity, so that's partly on me. But anyway, all's fine now. I actually, when I was having trouble getting it on and off, I went out to a bicycle shop and I got some kind of a lubricant. I think it was like a bike chain oil or some kind of lithium grease or something like that that they said would be safe for electronics and stuff. And I put that in there, and that seems to have eased it up a little bit. But I wouldn't recommend that if I think they fixed that in production, so it's not an issue anymore. And I talked to a couple of the other testers, and they didn't have the issue either, so it must be fairly uncommon. Alright, so do a little bit more driving here. Describe what I'm feeling. Not concentrating on driving. Just an example of the wheel. Let's see what it does in the crash. I mean, you could break your wrist. Not literally, but it's very, very strong. Okay, this is Project Cars again. I just had to, it locked up when I tried to change cars. So I had to quit, go make the properties file, read and write, not read only anymore, restarted, it's working, but obviously this is a fragile build. This is the first try though of the new Pagani Hyura, I think that's how you pronounce it. Their new supercar that replaced the Zonda. So, haven't driven one of these yet. Again, forgive the driving, I'm not concentrating on hitting marks or anything like that. Back to the BMW rim, obviously. One thing I like that they've done, I don't know if they're using the shock, what they call, what Fanatec, wow. Sorry, I gotta get used to this car. I don't know if they're using what Fanatec calls the shock setting, not shock, basically the wheel vibration. It's SHO is the abbreviation here. What is nice about this, and I noticed it in the other car too, the wheel, I don't know if it comes through on the camera, but the wheel's actually vibrating here a little bit when the car's idling. And it stops if I pause it, you know, and pause the game. So there's this really nice feel of like the engine, and it's not vibrating the rim, so I don't know if it is really using those motors. It's basically wiggling it back and forth slightly, which is what you'd expect kind of in a real car when you feel it idle. It has a powerful engine. There's also this kind of neat resistance when you're turning the tires and you're going very slowly. You can almost feel the tires through the wheel, which is really nice. I'm going to take this slow. I know these, I can take these S's flat in that little open top racer, but I don't know about in this. I always forget whether the chicane is on or off, because in iRacing, the Watkins I've been driving in iRacing, does not have the chicane, so if this looks really dark, that's true. Whoa, brakes aren't as good on this as they are on the open wheel car. If it looks very dark in this cockpit, it's true. I don't know if it's the time of day I have it set for, or this is just their first shot at it. The detail looks very good from my first impression. And there's great reflections in the windshield too. But it could be a little brighter, but that just could be the setting of time of day, or whether it's overcast or whatever. I don't want to make too many changes in the game because, again, it seems like when you make changes in this build, it makes it crash. None of that has anything to do with the wheel, of course, so sorry if you're not into Project Cars if I'm boring you with that info, but just figured I'd talk about it. So back to the wheel. I say compared to... Let's pause it so it's a little quieter. Compared to the CSR Elite, I think it's night and day difference as far as the rim finish, obviously. This is quite a bit more money, but it feels absolutely professional. It feels a little bit more powerful to me too, but I don't know if that's just me being influenced by how great the grips feel on this wheel. Let me talk about the shifters for a second. These paddle shifters feel great to your hand. They don't have quite the click, the tactile click that you feel on the ones on the CSR Elite. Let me bring that wheel over and see if, I don't know if it'll translate on video, but God, this thing's heavy. So these I had described once before. Move it over here. Maybe this is more on camera. I had described these shifters once before as being just like my Infiniti G35 sedan I used to have. And they do. They feel exactly the same. They have the same shape. They have the same feel. I don't know if you can hear that, but they also have a really nice click and the feel that goes with that click. That is about my only complaint about this rim, is these feel slightly looser. And they feel, oh look at that, I knew I was going into reverse because I backed up twice, went from neutral to reverse. They just don't feel quite as good. Other than that, everything about this wheel feels more professional and more solid than the Elite, at least as far as the fit and finish on the rim. I think if they came out with a rim similar to this but without the features that are unavailable on an Xbox compatible wheel, it might be a real winner too, because the Elite's great and it's a tough choice for people that love playing Forza. I mean, that's really about the only game on the 360 that I think, you know, has the breadth of cars. I mean, I used to like, I'm not a completely hardcore sim addicted. You know, I can play other just fun arcade style games. And I used to love Project Gotham Racing. I think it was PGR 3 or something like that. It was wonderful. It was one of my first games that I really got into with the original Fanatec wheel. I think it was the Porsche 911 Turbo, or Turbo S. And that was fun but not realistic, and if you're into those kinds of games and you play them on a console, it's certainly a lot less hassle than on the PC. But the PC is just getting so much more realistic now. With things like, there's two key features that I love about my racing rig that actually aren't supported yet in cars, and I'm hoping will get supported, and that's Track IR, which tracks your head movement and moves the camera along with your head, and 3D. NVIDIA 3D Vision, which these projectors are capable of, and I love racing in 3D. So R-Factor 2, for example, has both of those. The graphics aren't up to the level of this, and the feel's hit and miss too. I was actually expecting R-Factor 2 to be kind of the primo, other than iRacing and NetCar Pro, as far as feedback, but I gotta tell you, the last couple of builds on cars really feel good to me. And maybe I'm going back to those arcade roots, you know, and people can, you know, complain all the time that Slightly Mad Studios makes, you know, not real sim games, but look at their background. I mean, that is what they're based in. And I know they've had to make compromises in the past when they release a title and it has to go to consoles and has to be controlled with controllers and everything else. But I'm hoping that the way that this feels now just continues to get better and makes it into the final game, because it's really starting to feel good. I don't know how much of it's the wheel and how much of it's the sim. So I'm going to experiment more. I just got the latest drivers last week. I have to play a lot more. And I'm going to try, you know, R-Factor 2 and maybe Formula 1 2011 and some other games and make additional videos to add on to this. But for right now, I would say, to sum it up, if you have an Elite and you are into playing Forza or any other games on the 360, and you can live with the way the rim is, or wait until a future rim is available for the Elite, understanding that it will never have rev lights and all the buttons that are able to be put on a PC only or PC and PlayStation 3 only wheel. If you can live with all that, the Elite, as far as the feel through the wheel and the force feedback, is similar. But what this takes over the top is the actual tactile feel of what you get to grip in your hand. You get to race with a Formula style rim, you get to race with a BMW style rim that feel real. I mean, I've obviously never been in a Formula 1 car, and that's not meant to be a Formula 1 wheel anyway. They're going to come out with one of those later that's even fancier. But, you know, I think if you're someone that's raced in a Skip Barber or a Formula Ford or something like that, and you pick this up, you're going to be at home. And that, to me, is the difference between something like this and the Elite. If you have a G25, a G27, a older Fanatec Porsche wheel, and a funny line from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, for those of you who remember that movie, when he's talking about the Ferrari, the old, I think it was a 250 GTO. If you have the means, I highly recommend it. That's all I can say if you're ready to upgrade from one of those, you know, $100 to $300 wheels to something like this. For me, there's no going back. It's expensive, and I am actually, even as a tester, I get this for half price, and I probably would not have gone for this had I not been a tester without selling my Elite first. And I've made the decision that I'm going to focus on PC racing so I can live without the 360 for now. But, you know, that's a tough call if you already have an Elite. Certainly there's a market for a wheel like that, and if you want to upgrade to something like this, then I think you'd be happy. And also, if you're somebody that likes to race a lot of different types of cars, I mean, the ability to do this and just pull this off and switch to something else is really a cool feature. And not having to shut everything down, turn everything off, you know, what can I say? I mean, so far, so good. I'm going to keep trying this with other games, and I'll report back with more information. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to mention. This is still Project Cars. This is the Lotus 49. One thing about the removable rim that would be amazing, can you imagine if they come out with an old... I have the wheel turned off in this game, so you can't see the view of the wheel itself, but they draw, if you do turn that on, they draw a beautiful, now they've got the Lotus license. It's that red, I think it's a Momo, leather-covered, very simplistic wheel, probably a little bit smaller than this. And then there's some other older cars that, of course, had wood rims, old, you know, Ferrari GT-style cars, things like that. Can you imagine if they came out with wheels like that, which I think they plan on doing, a bunch of different types? If they're affordable enough, especially if it's very basic, if it's just a nice leather-covered Momo or something like that, you don't need to have all these buttons. How authentic feeling would that be? That would be incredible. And about the buttons, another thing. I'm like 5'9", you know, I'm average size. I have average size hands, not small, not huge. And some of these aren't that useful while you're actually racing. They're a stretch. But what I've found is it gives you so much flexibility. It's a heck of a lot easier. Some people might complain, oh, well, I can't reach that button very easily, or I can't reach, certainly that's a tough one, these two down here, very easily while I've got my hands driving. Well, it's a lot easier to reach this than it is to reach over to a keyboard. Or even a button box. If you have a button box off to the side, that's going to be a further reach than any of the buttons on this wheel. That being said, a lot of them are very reachable when you're driving. These I use generally for boost or pCARS in Formula 1, DRS, things like that. Very, very useful. I have set the yellow button in the center to center my view when I'm using Track IR in other games that support it. So you just basically have to sit and look straight ahead, hit this button, and it'll center your view, which is really cool. I've mapped these, like I showed earlier, to seat position. I haven't gotten into it yet, but you could control LCD menus in-game with the rotary encoder that's over here. So a lot of flexibility. But that being said, I think Fanatec's thought ahead and realizes that some people may want simpler, lighter rims, something NASCAR style, or like I said, one of the older style Momos or something. And what you could do is there's an extra port on this wheelbase as compared to the Elite. There's actually a port called Data that's under there. First of all, there are two shifter connections, shifter 1 and shifter 2. So you could have your H pattern shifter, which I don't think is on camera here, and you could also have your sequential shifter and use that as an e-brake until they come out with a real brake. Or I suppose if you were able to get the pinouts and figure out how that's wired, you could make your own e-brake and use that second shifter board for that. As long as you're, again, in a PC, you're going to have the flexibility in most games to assign controls to whatever you want. Some games, unfortunately, not. Mostly those ones that are ported over to consoles as well. So that's one thought I have about the button layout. I'd say the buttons on the Formula Rim, because the whole thing are smaller, are more accessible. But there's nothing that really beats the feel of a real-sized, real race car style wheel. So, you know, I don't know another way they could have done it. I guess there could have been buttons that were closer out here, but the real rim that I'm looking for in my particular setup that I hope they build is the problem I have here with this car and with several others. I can't see the gauge through this section of the wheel like I like to unless I move the seat. Let's pause so that won't work. Unless I move the seat up like to there, I know your camera angle won't quite see what I'm seeing, but now I can see the tack fully, but it feels like I'm sitting too high. So one thing I've always wanted is, if you've seen Le Mans style prototype cars that race in 24 Hours Le Mans or the ALMS, a lot of those cars, especially the faster prototype ones and not necessarily the GT ones, they'll have a wheel that's shaped just like this, except this section right here is cut off, the top. That would be perfect. It would reduce a little bit of the weight, and it would also allow me to see the center of my particular layout, which I know is fairly unique, but a lot of people, I think, like to keep their monitors kind of low, so your field of view and perspective feels right, and sometimes the top of the rim can block that. So I would love a wheel like that, because A, it comes out of a real race car, and B, it's going to give me a much better view. And it may be a little bit quicker too because of the added lightness. I don't really have the guts to cut this myself. I'm sure there's probably nothing preventing anyone from doing that. You could probably do that and just have that stitched back up, but I'm not about to do that on a brand new wheel. But I'd love if they made something like that. And I think even for, I mean, one of the issues with using the Formula Rim is if you're driving a closed-top car, you know, especially something that's GT or a production style car, it's going to have 400, 500, 600 degrees of rotation, and with that Formula Rim, you're really limited to just full lock of your arms, and that's about it. So I think with something like this, even if the top was cut off, you could still spin it like I just did there, like you would do if you're drifting, and you're not necessarily, I did grab the top a little bit there, but you get my point. If there's only a little bit missing, you could still use it more like a GT rim, and you'd still have the advantages of what I talked about earlier. So that's about all for now. I will come back with more thoughts later and maybe some close-ups of all the different parts of the wheel, things like that. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.